Grand Priest is widely regarded as one of the most influential logicians and philosophers of the past half century. He's distinguished professor of philosophy at the CUNY Graduate Center and has held senior appointments at major universities in Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. His work has attracted over 10,000 citations.
Actually raised a Christian.
Oh, wow. But you don't identify as Christian any longer, I assume?
Not for a long time, 50 years.
Wow. What is it that, again, it's totally up to you. You don't feel inclined to respond if you don't want to. But what is it in the Christian worldview that perhaps you most object to?
Object will be the wrong way of putting it. There's a very standard problem that Christianity faces. In fact, most of the Middle Eastern religions face. That's called the problem of evil. I don't see how a being who knows everything that's happening, is omnipotent, and cares about creatures, people, could allow some of the horrible things that happen in the world. I just don't find that conjunction of thoughts plausible at all. Now, of course, Christian philosophers have been aware of this issue for a long time, and they've suggested possible solutions to this problem. I've never met one that I find plausible.
Yeah, no, it's very sensible. I mean, I think something that maybe some such apologist might say, or a philosopher inclined in that direction might say, is that what we would mean by the word God is not a moral being in the way that we understand, right? Like we say, what's that?
That's not just heterodoxy, that's blasphemy.
It could be, but what was that?
Saying that God is not a good being is blasphemy.
Well, let me finish, right? So not a moral being in the way that we understand, like a moral being is somebody that gives to charity and is nice and kind and friendly. And it could be said that what we mean by God is the summum bonum. It's the highest good of every creature.
What do you mean by God is good?
Right. So we say that we seek for our goodness and our well-being in union with different particular entities. For example, I want union with money because I feel it will give me the capacity to satisfy my desires. I want union with a given nice lady because I feel she'll make me happy. I want union with a big home because I feel it'll make me secure, and so forth. All right. So when we say something such as that God is good, it might be that we mean that union with the highest reality, with what necessarily exists and what is ultimately at the bottom, so to say, perhaps of every contingent being as well. Union with that reality can lead to, and is the only thing that can lead to, permanent and true well-being and satisfaction, and can satisfy our deepest desire for some permanent good. And the fact is, should I say, is that even in this world, with all its evil and with all its tsunamis and murders and Holocaust and all these horrible things, those unions have been achieved by millions of people. It's just an undeniable fact, meaning by saintly people that have surrendered their selfishness, their self-centeredness, that have dedicated their life to service and to the good. Right? They're living examples that it is possible to, even in the world such as it is, to work yourself out.
You want to have a union with God.
What's that?
To say that God is good is to say that you want to have a union with God.
Well,
that's what you said.
So when we say something is good, again, I have a desire, anything. A bank robber wants to rob a bank and robs the bank and says, good, great. I want a desire for coffee. Good. There's no coffee, there's only tea. I say bad.
Talking about God.
What's that?
When I say that God is good, I mean fill in the blank.
Well, it takes a little bit of context. So when I say that something is good, I say that it satisfies some sort of desire of mine, whatever that desire is. Right?
God satisfies your desires.
So it's not that God satisfies my desires. If I have contingent desires and my priority is to satisfy a wide plethora of desires, I want money, fame, fortune, then that makes me not good. But if I have a single desire to consummate my human nature, right, being a creature constituted such as I am, and I suppose that I can satisfy that by union with an ultimate reality that calls for the sacrifice of my selfishness and my self-centeredness, right? My me and mine and all of that, and my hatred and my apathy and all kinds of things. That's what I would mean by God is good, it seems.
God is good means that you want to have a union with God.
But the me that would want to have that union is the very me that would need to be sacrificed. It's that very small and petty and selfish self.
I asked you what you meant by God is good.
So that's what could be meant by it.
What is good? What you just said to me was this: God is good in the sense that I want to have a union with him or her. That's what you said.
So I would say that that's a little bit of a straw man, right? So again, when we use the word good, when we use when we use the word good, I'm sorry, you just keep cutting out those first few seconds each time, and then I have to. When we say good in any context, right, there's no way to define what is good without desires. If there was some sort of creature that had no connotations whatsoever, we can't say what's good or bad, right, for that creature. It's when I want something, I want the state of consciousness, I want an objective accomplished, and I say it's good. Again, I want the dollar, good. I don't get the dollar, bad. So at bottom of all desires, it would seem, is a desire for ultimate, as it were, self-satisfaction or ultimate well-being. When a person, instead of pursuing any number of particular selfish stimulations, I'm going to, go to the amusement park and I'm going to do this and that. When a person dedicates themselves to their notion of the highest reality, and when they make the necessary sacrifices and serve other people and so forth, then they achieve, it seems, a state of well-being that is truly desired. But it's not the me that is selfish that gets that. Nor is union in question here like some sort of naive sense of, I'm going to hug somebody. Right? Again, it's the sense where I say I want union with, let's say, a successful career. I want that to be mine, right? I want to be one with a successful career, and I will be satisfied in that sense. I want to be one with reality, with what really is, and then I will be satisfied, but it will be at the cost of the little me that wants that satisfaction. You know what I'm saying?
Well, look, you've just said exactly the same thing again. So we're going round in a circle here. I asked you what it means to say that God is good, and you told me what it means for you to be good. Okay? You haven't answered my question. But look, maybe we should drop this because we've just been going round in a circle now.
Well, what's not clear about what I said, if I could ask?
Look, fill in the blank. Say that God is good means, just fill in the blank for me.
So again, words themselves, it's not the point. We can't ultimately define words by using other words. I'm trying to use words to direct our attention somewhere in reality that is nonverbal. That's why I gave the examples of saying that if I want tea, then having tea is good, and if tea is not there, then it's bad. I'm using words to direct our attention somewhere, but it's not so simple to say the words are the words. It's like saying, again, what is a cow? A cow is an animal. What is an animal? An animal is an organism. Fill in the blank. A cow is an organism. Okay, what do I learn by that?
I'm using words to direct your attention. I'm using words to direct your attention to something too. Namely, that if God allows things that any human, decent person allows, then God cannot be good.
So I would say God is not good in the sense that we say somebody is good as in moral or immoral. God would be the good. Right? It would be the good of a sentient, rational, conscious creature such as ourself is to give up our self-idolatry and wanting to be God ourself, for that matter, right? Being little gods, right? Be little tyrants and narcissists, to give that up and to submit ourselves to our best notion of ultimate reality. So
we're just going around in a circle again. I mean, you're repeating yourself, I'm repeating myself.
And as for you say all these things happen, or that's where we could invoke, perhaps, as it's called, cause and effect. We live in a natural world governed by natural law. If there's a tsunami, people die. And further, we're looking at things from our, as it were, anthropomorphic perspective, right? Like if bacteria had a shred of self-consciousness, they can be like, oh my goodness, every time somebody washes their hands, they commit genocide. How can there be good in the world? Well, you're bacteria. Right? That's why, right? So somebody that cares about chickens, they're like, how can it be a good world when millions of chickens are slaughtered? Somebody else says, well, they're just chickens. What good are they for? The question is, beyond being chicken nuggets and things like that. But the question is, can values be realized in the world such as it is? Can things such as love and truth and goodness and individuality and personality, can those things rise and grow in this world? And the answer seems to be yes, empirically speaking.
Created the world and made it that way.
Was that?
Who created the world and made it that way?
Yeah, well, we would say that ultimately everything has to go back to the absolute, right? Whether we call that God or not, everything has to go back to what necessarily must be.
But if there is suffering in the world, God intended it. Because
It must be that it's necessary. So, for instance,
God intended it.
sure.
God is omniscient. So he created a world and he intended people to suffer. That is not what I would call a good person.
Well, we're against it. God is not a good person. And also, when we say intended, it's like, let's say you wanted to think up in your mind any kind of world, and it had to have a lot of bodies. For animals, let's say, how would you go about things, right, where you at the same time gave animals the possibility of knowing about the health and illness of their body, which entails pain receptors and so on, with the fact that it is necessary to take in calories. So, for example, a lion has to eat the gazelle and things like that. These are necessary realities. And as we work together and we advance human knowledge, we see lots of diseases can be ameliorated. Education can alleviate many ills. Just societies can also, right, heal many problems. And if we were to remove everything in the world that is the result of our selfishness and error and misuse of our freedom, the world could be a pretty nice place pretty soon, it seems.
Caused by things like earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes. These have nothing to do with what people do.
Sometimes, yeah, but a fire can be used to warm our hands, or it can be used to burn down a whole forest, right? So, what's that?
You're changing the subject. I mean, your point was that some suffering is caused by what people do, and it is, but lots of suffering isn't. So that's irrelevant.
Well, that's again supposing that the avoidance of suffering is the goal, right? That God would have to be some sort of ultimate hedonist who wants to give us pleasure. God, if, again, in this framework, and I'm not even saying it's my framework, I'm saying in this framework, God gives the opportunity for sentient, rational creatures to properly employ their freedom and to work out their salvation and work out their good. This happens in an arena that is difficult, right? Anything is difficult. Special forces training is very difficult, right? And if somebody were to say, look at all this suffering to become a Navy SEAL, right? It's so crazy. Most people are filtered out, right? Like you said, you do martial arts, so do I, right? There's a lot of suffering in sports. There's a lot of suffering, but that's the point. The point is that a few people stand on the top of the podium and everybody else doesn't. The point is there's a lot of pain. That's the point. So if we take some sort of kindergarten conception and we say that everything, right, if there's God, he has to be this nice guy and he has to make everything soft and friendly, then yeah, obviously atheism is the only viable alternative. But if we say that there is an absolute reality, right, and us as finite contingent creatures, we have the opportunity to have union with or realize that absolute reality. And we can do that through, first of all, being moral and doing good and being good and giving up our selfishness and all that kind of stuff. Then that's a viable conception, irrespective of the fact that there still are earthquakes and there are tsunamis and things like that.
It's the question of why you should believe in it, that there is such an absolute. Now we hit the other side of the problem. What reasons are there to suppose there is such a thing?
Well, I think on the one hand, there's arguments to give. For example, we can say that nothing is relative. When I say there is no giraffe in this room, what's that?
Morality? You just said that morality is relative.
No. I said nothing is relative. The word nothing, not morality. That's a different question. The word nothing is relative. For instance, when I say there's no giraffe, I mean that there is such a thing as a giraffe, but everything in this room is other than the giraffe, as with the example of the snow. So when we absolutize nothing and we say there is nothing, I'm not sure what that could mean. So we say there is something there, and ultimately either a reality is contingent and temporal or it's not. There's different arguments, causation, the phenomenal world. But ultimately, I think a distinction here to make, right, is by analogy, something like father, dad. You can prove the existence of a father using tests and proof, right, to the court and a paternity test. But dad is an emotional relationship which a person has to choose to have, right? So just so here, we can invoke arguments to try to establish that there is an absolute, that there is reality, and that reality is not, quote unquote, the universe, whatever that would mean, tangible extension, right? Atoms, what have we, right? That there is an ultimate reality, but our choice to have anything to do with that reality, that's like the dad part by analogy.
for supposing there is such a thing. We're in the domain of standard arguments for the existence of God, you realise. Okay? And there are many of those in the history of Western philosophy, both Greek, Arabic, Christian, and more modern. And I'm well aware of most of them, and I don't find them persuasive.
So I would say it's ultimately, per that analogy, it's not a question of reason. It's a question of, am I willing to surrender my own self-idolatry enough, my own self-centeredness enough to where I can submit. I don't know to what I'm submitting exactly. I just know what I'm not submitting to. I'm not submitting to the political party, to the cult, to the